Hello. How's it going, everybody? It's Monday. It's Photo Blab. I'm here. Mark is here. Steve, Brenda, Jason, Trent, and Noisy Mama are here. How's everybody doing? How's your week been? What's happening? I'll tell you what's happening with me. Yeah, right. I'll tell you what's happening with me. Hey, Harley, how's it going? I have 80 different patches on my back for allergy testing because I have these hives. I don't know, they probably won't come through on the stream very well, but if you look at my hand here, this is a very small sampling of all of the hives that are all over my entire body, which suck and itch so bad.
Maybe you're allergic to photography.
Oh God, that would be awful, right? So
I'll put up with the hives.
hoping to find out what the heck is causing this reaction because it sucks really bad, and I don't like my whole body itching like crazy. So that's what's going on with me. Mark, what's going on with you?
Not much. It's photography-wise, it's been pretty quiet, and just in general, it's been pretty quiet. It's weather here is still crap. It's snowing again today.
Oh no!
Yeah, and all weekend was cold. I wanted to get out and go do some exploring with my camera and do some shooting, but I couldn't bring myself around to it because of the being so cold.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. It's sometimes the weather just sucks and you just don't want to go out and shoot. I get that. Steve did get out and take some damn photos. Thumbs up for that. Says he second shot a wedding on Friday, engagement photos on Saturday, wedding this coming Saturday, and then Maya's recital the following week. Dude, that's awesome. You are busy. That's super cool. Hey, Finn, dude, how's it going? I just watched your last video on that lens. I can't remember which lens it was. Oh, it was the Helios 44-2. Good video. Really good video.
I got one of those.
Oh, you got one of those Helios?
No, that's not it. Right here. I think it's one of those ones.
Is it?
Yeah, 44. Yeah, 44-2.
44-2. Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one. Jason, I actually I don't mind needles. I don't love needles, obviously. So Jason says, fun for you. Hope you don't mind needles. I don't mind getting stuck with needles. I'm not a person who freaks out with that. So not a big deal. By the way, you guys, real quick, just want to shout out Photo here and let you guys know that he's making great photography videos over on his channel. So go check out his channel and subscribe to him. All right. Hello, RJ, and hello, Shane. How's it going? Shane just came home from a motorcycle ride. I thought about taking some damn photos, but yeah, sometimes it happens. I get it. Jason took some annual pictures of the children a couple weeks ago, finished editing on Saturday. I figure I can do at least as well as the photographers doing the school pictures. I'm sure you can probably do better, Jason, honestly. I mean, not to knock the people who do school photos. Often they are very passionate about what they do, but
they're usually pretty restricted to what they can do too.
Yes, they're usually very restricted in what they can do with very little to no creativity at all. And sometimes they are just assembly line workers, so to speak, who are just, they get a camera put into their hands, they're told what settings to use, exactly where to put the lights or whatever, and then, click, and that's it. Photo Finn says, had a dope golden hour the other day, shot a new profile and some cool pics. Yeah, I like that profile photo, by the way. I saw that up on Instagram, and I see you've got it on your YouTube now, too. It looks really good. And
I subscribed.
Awesome. Yeah. While you guys are at it, do me another favor, okay? Would you hold on just a second? Give me a half a second here.
Hi, Sandy.
Hey, Sandy, and hello, Janice. Harley says, I need to get my MC prepared for this. Whoa. What the heck? Oh, that was my phone. thought it said I said the magic word to trigger.
to trigger it?
Yeah, to trigger it. Okay, so I've got another channel I want you guys to go check out and subscribe to. It's my friend Zara. And she's awesome, and she just put up her first video on her channel. It is a video on pricing. So if you're trying to start a photography business, you should definitely check out this video on pricing. So I'm just posting this in the chat.
I saw you post that on Facebook. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I would consider it a favor to me if you guys would check out Zara's channel and subscribe to her channel.
Hint, nudge, nudge.
Because she's awesome. She's really awesome. RJ says, I messed up uploading the images to the share. One is under Christen that can be deleted. Okay, not a big deal. I see it right there. So I'll delete that one. Got it. Perfect. Boom. That one is, yes, I want to delete. I don't want to time it out. I just want to delete it. There we go. Remove. Boom. Done deal. Speaking of which, we should probably get to the photos, right? Let's see. RJ says 2 others, the same shot in BTS of the setup in case it helps, are okay under RJ Brad. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So let's take a look at the photos. Abort. And why don't we start with yours, Mark? So I'm going to bring this bad boy up. And I'm going to switch it over so everybody can see your photo and tell us what you got going on here. This thing's beautiful.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm not 100% happy with it myself. There's something that I just couldn't put my finger on it, what it was that I didn't like. And I was talking to a photographer friend at work, and he kind of, he looked at it and he basically said the same thing. We kind of tossed it around a little bit. And I think what we ended up figuring out is that the position of this tree, because it's straight down the middle, so there's nothing on the left side to kind of balance it out. And so, but other than that, it looks good, and I didn't have much of a choice because it was sort of all wet and soggy. Basically, this was really the only place I could get that photo. But anyways, it was an HDR. It was three images merged together to get everything blended nicely. And the basic settings for it, it was shot with my Pentax K1 with how many millimeters is it was at ISO 400 at 35 millimeters, f/4.5, and the shutter speed varied between the three different images that ended up blending it together.
Right.
But,
okay.
I took this picture and actually already sold a copy of this print as well too.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, so I was quite pleased about that.
Yeah, the colors are gorgeous. Janice says that. Awesome sky, so many colors. Harley says, I wonder if it's because the road is sort of leading the eye off frame and away from the tree and building, and that's the point of interest. And I kind of agree with what Harley's saying. There's definitely, for me, a little bit of a conflict between the road pulling back and then the tree pulling up.
Yeah.
And for me, the road takes precedence because it leads back to that sky, which is the real payoff here.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying. Like, it's a little unfortunate that the tree is there, but I don't think it ruins the photo.
Yeah. Well, the thing, if I taken this exact same shot about 5 years ago, to the left of the tree, there would have been a barn, but the barn's collapsed since then.
Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it probably wouldn't have looked so bad if the barn was still there.
Yeah, that would balance it out somewhat even more.
Yeah. But it's still a good shot. I like it. It's just I just know it's not quite balanced, just quite right.
Right. I agree with what you're saying. Jason says the same thing about the tree in the middle. RJ says, love those colors. I'm usually stuck in a meeting in an office when this kind of sky happens outside, right?
Yeah,
Steve,
that's about it.
Yeah, Steve doesn't mind the tree in the middle though, which, fair enough, right?
I think the tree being there wouldn't be so bad if there was just something on the left to help balance it out.
I think you're right.
But this might actually work well as a square crop, perhaps.
That could. That might really work out nicely.
Yeah, I'll have to play with it a bit and see how it looks. But
I think that would, because that would offset that open sky on the other side and reframe it in a way that would push your attention and frame everything around the tree and the house, I think. Yeah, interesting. Steve says, I like it right side heavy, and says, first look, saw the upper part of the tree and then followed it down to the sky. I don't know how to say it. Dev Erolg. That's really bad, but this is where you put the details. I'm just posting this into the chat right now. There's a link right there, and you can put your details right there. Scott, hello Scott, by the way. Scott likes the colors in the photo. Harley says, wonder what would have happened if you had the same focal point but moved over about 50 feet to the right so you're more in line with the building and pivot the whole scene. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely another way that you could approach it.
yeah. Except it was muddy. That was the problem.
Ah, right.
It was just kind of grabbed on my way to work, so I didn't really have that much time to even think about trying something different as well too. So it's kind of like grab the shot, but then yeah, like Harley says, rubber boots. Yes,
Right,
but like
exactly.
again, I was on my way to work, so it's just kind of one of those
Yeah,
spontaneous
you
things.
take the shot. Yeah, you get the shot
Yeah,
that you get. Yep,
yeah,
yep,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
All right, so this one is my photo, and those of you who caught the live stream will recognize what's going on here. We took Angela and mixed some glitter in with some liquid latex, and then I painted that on her, and then put her inside of this 4-foot light box that I built. And the lighting is 4 different lights. So one on each side of the box, one above, and one behind. All of them in a diffusion modifier. The ones on the right and left were in umbrella soft boxes. The one coming from the top was in one of the newer soft boxes that I was using. And I think I just threw the one in the back up with an umbrella. And the idea here was to shoot something that was inspired by the Drake Hotline Bling video. And I'm really, really happy with the way these photos turned out. I love the way we got this flat color look, which was what inspired me about the Drake video, and this sort of boxed and contained feeling inside of this ambiance of light. And then we were playing on that idea of her being encased and fighting to escape, with her ripping off this, this latex and like sort of freeing herself out of her body, out of this confinement or whatever you want to call it. So this is just one of the photos from that photo shoot. As far as my settings go, I was shooting at ISO 200, which is my camera's base ISO, and f8 and 1/250th of a second. And I'm not going to lie, I don't remember the lighting settings as far as the power levels, but I feel pretty confident that most of them were at, because we're going for a very even light, as you can see here. I'm pretty sure, oh, there's 5 lights. I got to add the last one. Most of the lights around the box, I'm pretty sure we're at half power. And then I had one more light up front, also in an umbrella, shooting into the box to light Angela from the front. And that light was actually positioned directly above and just above the camera, so that the light wouldn't flare into the lens. To light Angela up from the front and give us just enough of a separation from the background to allow her to stand out in the shot and that wash of color. So that's my photo, and I'm really, really happy with the way these photos turned out. I love being able to come up with an idea like this and then see it come to life in the photo. Like, that's part of what I love.
Did she have trouble getting the latex off?
No, actually, we prepped for that, and essentially what she did is laid down a base layer of Vaseline petroleum jelly on her skin, which made it. It still stung a little peeling off, but it made it peel off way, way easier than if she hadn't, where it would have really been sticky to her and her body hair. And she basically would have gotten an all over body wax if not for the Vaselines.
Yeah.
So that made a big difference.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Cochise says, hello, Cochise, by the way. Great shot. Cyberdax says, would make a wonderful Got Milk advert. That would be an interesting advert, yeah. Steve says the total blue tone looks great. I agree. We went back and forth over adding that magenta during the photo shoot and not. And I'm glad that we backed away from that and went with just the total blue. I really love the shot and the way they turned out. So those are our photos. Let's get on to your guys' photos, starting with Steve's right here. So Steve says, I did my cousin's wedding engagement photos for her. Engagement photos for her. Figured the bridge with the lens would look great compressed. I agree with that, by the way.
Yeah.
This was shot with the Nikon D850 and the Nikon 200mm f2 lens. It was at ISO 125 1/800th of a second in f2, so wide open to get that really beautiful shallow depth of field there. And then he lit this with the flash point, also known as the Godox 600, AD600 or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but it's the 600 watt second light at 1/4 power in a 38-inch parabolic soft box about 40 feet away. Beautiful shot. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I like the shot. It's quite nice. It's the shallow depth of the field works really well with this. I have to admit, though, the one thing that throws me off is these super high railings. It makes them look small in relationship to the bridge there, so it seems a little bit funny. I know it's not nothing that could be done just because of the way it is, but it's a lovely shot. I do like it. It's well framed, I think it's all set. The rails kind of on both sides leading away and everything else like that. And nicely posed, nice lighting, everything. It's great.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I goofed up a little bit. Steve says he was 40 feet away. The light was about 10 to 12 feet away. So that was my mistake there. But yeah, I agree. It's a beautiful shot. I don't think the railings make them feel like, I get what you're saying, Mark. I get what you're saying. I guess I didn't feel that they made them look too small because I've been on, enough bridges where they're, they've got those really tall railings anyway.
Yeah.
But like that depth of field is just, just beautiful, right? Because they just pop right out of this shot. Yeah, Steve says they did a bunch with natural light and flash. Shane says it almost looks Photoshop, and he means that as a compliment, not a criticism. Brenda says it's a really great shot. Noisy Mama agrees it's a beautiful shot. Noisy Mama doesn't like the disconnected hand on her back. I see what you're saying there. It's hard with hands, and that is something that you need to watch out for, because when a person puts their hand around another person and it's coming out the side like that, it does kind of look a little bit, even though that is natural and it's right, it does look a little bit like you have this random amputated hand coming out of nowhere. So I try to look for that when I'm taking my own photos. And when you see things like that, just hands or fingers peeking out in a way that look awkward and distracting, usually it's better to have them drop their hand back. They can still keep their arm around the person, but rather than having it show in the shot, just have them drop it back around the person so that they're still in that space together like they are here. The intimacy is really strong there, but then you don't have that random amputated limb coming out of the person. But it's a great shot. It's a really, really beautiful shot. Moises, I'm saying that wrong and I apologize. Great shot. They seem to be small because the background looks like an escalator. So kind of what you were saying too, Mark. Devilrug says he's leaning into it enough for it to look natural and not too floaty with the arm. Yeah, I think so. I think it's a horse apiece. For me, now that Noisy Mama pointed it out, it's the hand stands out, and so I'd probably prefer it back. But
I don't mind it myself. But...
Exactly right. It's just going to depend upon the person.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking at it,
it doesn't stand out going, "Whoa, what the hell's that?"
Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, and Steve says it is a big bridge, so that makes sense too. RJ says perspective and background compression is doing that as well, so it's amplifying it a little bit. Shane, this is true. Most guys aren't natural at posing. It actually looks more real because of it to me. This is true. This is also, though, where it's good for us as if we are photographers taking photos of other people. I think it's really, really worth it. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's really worth it for you as a photographer to put yourself in front of the camera. It doesn't have to be a thing anybody ever sees, but it will help you understand posing better, and it will help you direct people and help them pose better for the photos that you're taking of them. Okay, so let's move on to the next photo. Oh, I can call you Moses. Oh, okay, I get it. That means Moses in Portuguese. Okay, Excellent. So this
Cool.
is Noisy Mama's photo. This is a pretty cool photo too. So Noisy Mama says, a group of us were playing with night photography. We got a lot of good images, but this was my favorite. My friend's son Steele was bored. I love this. Was bored until he saw how we could trick the cameras with the night and the long exposure photography. And this one was pretty simple. He stood there. Noisy Mama set off one flash to light him up. And then we used a flashlight to write his name above him. And Noisy Mama says, I was doing it at first to show others how it works, but since I'm short, someone else took that part over. And this was shot at ISO 160 and f7.1. And then Noisy Mama used the bulb mode to hold the shutter open as long as necessary to paint the letters into the shot. So she doesn't have an exact shutter speed. And I think this is great. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's like that, especially the writing itself. It almost looks good enough that it looked like it could almost be like a Photoshop job versus light painting.
It's really well done.
It's really well done. Yeah, like if it was me, it would just look like a complete total shit show, for lack of a better term. You'd never be able to read it. So. Yeah.
Oh,
like
God.
Steve said, it looks like a neon sign. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah, and the first burst of the flash kept him nice and sharp, and he obviously didn't move because there's like sometimes that happens with the in bulb mode, especially if there's any ambient light, is that
you get a little bit of blur.
Yeah, you get a little bit of ghosting or whatever it is. So it's nicely executed for sure.
Yeah, everybody agrees it's really great. Jason says neon sign is a good way to describe it. Janice says the writing is well done. I've tried this and it's not easy. It's very true. Harley, light painting is fun. I'm curious to know how many of you are going to use light painting for your long exposure challenge, which is due next week. I know what I'm doing. I'm actually shooting it soon. I'm shooting it this Friday. So I'm really excited about it because it's going to be a fun and really creative shoot, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm excited to see what you guys are going to do. So that's your reminder. Next Monday is the long exposure challenge. And if you're wondering what do I mean by long exposure, last week when we talked about it, this is fairly arbitrary, but I basically said 1/10 of a second or longer as far as your shutter speed goes. That's getting into long exposure. Sandy says I'm too lazy to get to my PC tonight to share a picture, so she's just watching.
At least she's honest about it, right?
Yeah. RJ says the only thing on this image is the dark part, pants bleeding into the background. I was looking at that too. I kind of wish there was a little bit more definition, but at the same time, I don't mind because I like how the attention is really focused on like him and his torso, and just sort of like the personality of him chilling out there. And I'm okay with them fading out, but I think you're right that it would probably be a little bit better if there was some definition on the pants there. Otherwise, really great job, Noisy Mama. This is really excellent. She says it took quite a few tries to get the writing right. I can imagine. I can definitely imagine.
No doubt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a really good point too. RJ says you can see a little more. And that's usually the case with all of these photos when it's coming through the stream, like watching Game of Thrones last night. If you guys were with me watching it, and how dark that episode was, and how impossible it was to see half of what was going on, when things are compressed and sent through the internet and looked at in different environments, you can't see things as well as they might be able to see in the original file. So RJ pointed out that you can see more detail in this photo if you download it to your own computer versus looking at it in the stream.
Right.
All right, so this next photo is from, I'm not sure who it belongs to. In the share room, the random username was Hectarius. Oh, no. I'm not going to spoil anything. That's all I'm saying about the episode. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so this was Hectarius, and this was shot with a Nikon D3400. Not sure whose photo this is, so if you want to claim this, go ahead and claim this in the chat, please. Nikon D3400, shot at f14. We got a signature on here too, but I can't decipher it.
Yeah, I can't
1/80th
tell
of a
either.
second, ISO 138 millimeters. This was shot for a Valentine Day theme, natural beauty on a beach location. And again, Mark, go ahead. I'll let you
Yeah.
start.
Well, the one thing is that I notice is that I think the horizon's a little bit crooked, but that's just you know that we always complain about that sort of stuff.
Oh God.
Yeah, like that. There's a beautiful woman on a beach there, and I'm looking at the
Mark's
horizon.
looking at the horizon. Ah, that's hilarious. I see it though. I see it. It lifts a little bit. It's slanting down just like a hair to the
Yeah,
left.
just a
It's
hair. Yeah, not
rising
not
just a
much,
hair to the right. Yeah.
but
But yeah,
but
I mean, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say. Other than that, I do like it. I like the way the wind's taking the red sheet or whatever that is, or
The
maybe you
fabric.
have fabric. Maybe you have somebody off camera that's flipping it for you. But either way, I like the way it's set up. It's normally the horizon in the middle. I'm not a fan of, but in this case, it doesn't bother me any, just because everything else is using the thirds all nicely, and everything just the way it's laid out, everything draws your attention to the model that is sort of the main focus. So
I mean, you see
it's
what's kind
nice,
of landing on the third, don't you? It's a different sort of attention grabbing
right?
feature. You
Right.
know, Coach E says there's a horizon.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a beautiful photo. Her
Yeah.
pose is fantastic. I love the natural beauty of it. I love what you're going for in this shot. I agree with what Mark said. The horizon's a little bit up. The way the fabric moves is absolutely gorgeous in this shot. Everything about it is really beautiful. The only thing I wish is that there was a little bit more light in her face. Because of her pose and because of the direction of the light and the fabric, we've got this darker line of shadow on her face, and we're losing not a ton. There's still detail there, but we're losing a little bit of her face
Yeah,
into
maybe
that
half a
shadow.
stop or so.
Yeah, and so I wish, some bounce or a flash, whatever you would want to use in this situation, to just fill that in a little bit more and lift that up in terms of the exposure to make her face stand out a little bit more. Otherwise, like, this is a beautifully executed photo, and I really love it.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
even now that you say that, I think even her face is a little bit red because of the light going through the
it
material as
is,
well.
yeah, and that would help balance that color back out as well. Shane says the pasty is distracting. That's just for YouTube, Shane. And I'm not sure. Again, I'm not sure whose this is, but the pasty was just added for YouTube. I'm sure the original photo doesn't have it on there. Lady Godiva in red is fantastic. Maybe she should be facing the other way. Probably they needed her to face that way for the wind. If you can see, the wind's taking her hair as well.
Yeah,
And I think we'd lose her into even more shadow if she turned the other way, because then the light would be coming through the fabric and falling onto her. It would even her face out on one hand, because that would essentially act as the red fabric would act as a giant scrim for her. A scrim, just a big flat diffusion surface. It's just a fancy word for it. It would add that red color cast as well. But I think it works this way because it's cascading behind her, and I think the flow of that works better than if she were to stand this way and have it cascading out in front of her. Noisy Mama, yes, I would definitely have used a light to even that out if I were shooting in that situation. That's definitely what I would have done. Okay, let's see what else. Harley says, you're getting old when you wonder why they're blocking the beautiful car with a model.
yeah,
Yeah, fair point. Oh, it's really great work. Again, not sure whose photo this is. I don't know if anybody claimed it, but the next photo was by them as well, and we asked that you only share one photo, so we're going to move on to Jason's photo here. And Jason's photo is of his son and his stepfather, and he adds that that Jason's father passed away about 12 years ago. So his stepfather was here helping his son, and my son was getting baptized this day and needed to have his tie tied, and I was behind the camera documenting. This was shot at ISO 100, f1.8 and 1/80th of a second with the nifty 50 millimeter lens. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I really like this shot. It's a nicely captured moment. One thing that might have added a little bit to it is if you backed up or shot a little bit wider, so you get all of the grandfather's face in the shot as well too. But I know I do realize that the main subject is the kid there, the child, and it's definitely a nicely captured moment because you even without seeing all of his face, you still know what's going on. Um, and it's more about the moment than anything, and it's probably one of those things where you just kind of saw it happening, took the camera, took the shot, and didn't have time to, because obviously it's unposed. So it's definitely a very very well captured moment, and it's something that the family will cherish for a long time.
Yeah, I like it tighter, and Jason says he does have one that is wider, and he liked this one better. I think and I'm speculating because obviously we haven't seen the wider one, but I think having the full stepfather's full face in there would pull
Oh,
too much.
stepfather. So I said grandfather, didn't I? Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean grandfather. No, it is the
Okay,
child's.
okay.
Yeah, it's Jason's stepfather. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, okay,
So
okay.
in the context of the photo, the step grandfather here is helping, and I think having his eyes and full face in there would pull too much attention away from the boy who is. I mean, this is a moment between them, but he's also the focus of the shot. And
Right.
I also think pulling out wider, I really like the tight crop. I really like how tight we are on your son's head and how we have just enough context of your stepfather helping him tie the tie. For me, I love this composition because you're showing just enough to tell the story. And I think for me, wider wouldn't work as well either.
Yeah, and usually with events like this, as basically RJ says, is about capturing the moment. And if you're worried about composition and stuff like that, when you're trying to capture the moment, you won't capture the moment.
Right. You know, it's always a balance in between those two when it's something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, George says this is a great photo and the story behind it is beautiful. Harley says the boy is the focus and a wider would be more distracting for him as well. Jason says, let's see, RJ says, I agree, Mark. It's the moment the composition could do with being looser frame, but in all, it's a really nice moment. Jason says it is a little tight in the left. I mean, yeah, maybe, but I gotta say, like, I think it's a really well done composition, honestly, because his eyes pull so much attention, and we really see him, and we see your stepfather's hands working the tie, and we see just enough of his face. Like to me, there's almost it's all I'm, it's hard to say anything is perfect, right? But for me, this is almost like perfectly composed to tell the story that you're trying to tell, just enough without too much information. And that's for me. We're all going to see this differently, so I'm not saying
Yeah,
I'm right.
absolutely.
Just adding that. Oh, and Jason says kudos to me, Spyros, because for my Photoshop actions helping him out with the eyes.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so that's pretty sweet. All right, let's move on to the next photo. This here is, I believe, Brenda's photo, right? Yeah, Brenda's here. My husband and I visited Niagara Falls in Ontario last November to celebrate our 39th anniversary. Well, that's awesome. Happy anniversary. It's a year late,
Yep.
but, happy anniversary.
Yeah. Better late than never, right?
Yeah, exactly. Better late than never. After our
Yeah.
anniversary dinner at the Embassy Suites, we walked out over a pedestrian bridge, and I took this shot when the falls first changed colors. It was the night they were lighting up the Christmas tree. And then this was shot at ISO 1600 and f2.6 and 1/13th of a second at 2.66 millimeters. So this was on, again, I can't remember. I think it's either, I think you have a Fuji point and shoot style camera. So that's why it seems like such a small focal length at 2.6 millimeters. Nikon Coolpix. Thank you.
Coolpix,
Nikon
yeah.
Coolpix, not Fujifilm. All right. Go ahead, Mark.
I like the way that the colors are all captured.
Yes.
That I I've been to the falls a few times, but I honestly don't know if they light them up all year round or if they only do it at a certain time of the year. But not that that's relevant to anything. But still the colors are nice. The way the trees kind of break things up. At first, I was thinking, "Oh, I'm not sure if I like it," but then it's kind of like, well, it adds some depth to it, adds some feel to it. It just uh, just adds to it. It's just sort of it's kind of like that last video you posted where you talking about using flash and you put something between the flash and the background to kind of
Ah,
give it
a cookie.
yeah cookie. So it kind of has that kind of a feel to it. I do like that. Maybe it's just the way it's coming through the stream, but it looks like it might be a little bit blurry, but that might be because of the slow shutter speed, or again, it could be because of the stream. I didn't actually look at the original file, so but
I'm
other than that, I do like the way it was captured and spotted.
Yeah, it is the. I'm pretty sure it's the slow shutter speed. At 1/13 of a second hand holding, you're likely to get a little bit of that shake, which is why I think this looks a little bit soft.
Yeah.
And that's, that happens sometimes, which is, it is what it is, right? Yeah, Branda
Hmm.
said it's handheld. I will say this. I like the colors. I think the colors in that sunset are beautiful. I do kind of wish that it was shot horizontally rather than vertically. What's happening and what I'm seeing here is you've got what looks like a car on the road and headlights or street lamps illuminating that road down towards the middle center of the frame. And we also have some sort of a building or something over on the left there with some, outdoor lights of some sort. And those brighter lights pull my attention downward in the image, away from the sky and into the bottom, which is a bit cluttered. And in my opinion, it's a visitor center. The lower part of the image doesn't add a lot of value to the upper part of the image, which is what we were looking at. The lights across that shot look really cool because, like somebody said, lights almost look like an alien spaceship. Scott says, and like I'm super intrigued by those lights. I had no idea what those lights would be without the story that you're telling of them lighting this up for Christmas. And for me, that's really what I want to focus my attention on. And what I think would make this a little bit stronger too is you have the curvature of the falls, which kind of start. For me, it starts over on the left with the roof of the visitor center, and then you kind of move up to the right and then around the falls, and then the branch kind of augments this sort of fall off point where the haze of the falls kind of just washes everything out, and then you roll back up into those lights across the way there, and then you have this other really strong line that pulls you across. So I wish it was horizontal for that reason, because then you could really emphasize that flow through the image and pull away those distracting elements on the bottom. But like your colors are beautiful. That the exposure is really nice. We talked about the handheld nature of it, and that happens
Hmm.
sometimes, and that is what it is. So for me, the biggest thing is just looking at that composition. And it comes back to looking at what's in your image and removing the things that distract from the story you're trying to tell and focusing the composition on the things that augment the story you're trying to tell. Either way, though, still a really great image, Brenda. And for everybody, again, we always appreciate you taking the time to share your images with us and let us offer our feedback on them.
Yeah. This year was the falls actually froze solid
Did they
this winter.
really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Oops.
If I was closer, I would have went there and taken pictures. But it's 2 to 3 hours away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, that would look really, really cool. I'd like to see that. Janice says great colors, which I agree 100%. Jason says I haven't tried to do a longer exposure for a sunset. Looks like it turned out well. Yeah, long exposures for sunsets can be amazing. Like they can look great,
Hmm.
and I love long exposure to really, really bring out colors and things. And that, in fact, just to give you like a little bit of a hint, that's part of what I'm going to be trying to do with my long exposure shot for next week's assignment. So So this is shot on auto, right? Which I totally get. In this kind of light, you're going to need that longer exposure to get the shot. That's just the way it's going to be because of how dark it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on to our next photo. This one is, I believe, from. Let me just see. I'm pretty sure this is Trenton. Yep, this is Trent's. So Trent says this is Loki, and Loki was shot with a Mamiya RB67 150 millimeter f4 lens mounted onto his D850 via an adapter.
Oh.
Which is pretty cool. So if you're not familiar, Mamiya traditionally makes medium format cameras, and I'm pretty sure this the RB67 was a film medium format because 6.7 refers to the format 6x7.
Yeah.
I'm not like totally up on my medium format stuff. So this is a sort of vintage lens. And that's why the aperture is actually larger at f4. F4 on a medium format, this varies. So this is me drawing an analogy and not doing the exact math. But f4 on a medium format, in terms of the effective depth of field, is like
0.8 or something like that.
f2.8 or maybe 1.8 on a full frame camera, because when you go to a larger format, you essentially get the reverse quote unquote crop factor. And I don't want to go any deeper into it because that's all messy and whatever. And we're here to look at amazing photos and talk about them. But I did want to point that out. So this is ISO 16,000 on the camera. It was shot with available light, and we don't have the other settings, which is fine. So Mark, I'll let you start here.
No, it's a definite cute picture of the puppy. That's for sure.
It's a little doggy. It's a little
doggo. I think the processing is nice too. Like I think it's well suited for black and white just because of the tones and the dog and the couch and the pillows and the background and everything. It's just it's nicely toned for this shot, and for an old lens like this too, it just sort of fits the theme, I guess you could say. It just sort of works, and it looks like the focus is bang on too, as near as I can tell, looking at it again through the stream. But no, it's real nice. I really like this one. It's a simple shot, but it really works well.
Yeah, I think the black and white works fantastically for this. It's super cute. I mean, come on, it's a doggo. Who doesn't like a cute little doggo, right? I mean, that's adorable. The focus looks like it's on the nose rather than the eyes, and I'm not sure, Trent, if that was intentional or not. But using an adapted manual focus lens on a DSLR, that's sometimes a little bit tricky to get your focus exactly where you want it to be, especially if you're not using focus peaking or one of the other focus aids that might be available in live view. Even so, for me, the eyes are sharp enough. I love how sharp the detail, how much detail there is in the fur on the nose and the face. I mean, you could, especially with D850, you could zoom in and count hairs if you wanted to. But it's just great. The exposure is really nice. The light is very nice and soft and beautiful. It's such an intimate shot of a cute little doggo that, it's just great. I think you're right, Noisy Mama. She says, I think you can make out the photographer in the eyes, and you kind of can. Like, it's not very clear, and coming through the stream, it's going to be even worse. But looking at it, I can kind of vaguely get the shape of Trent there in the eyes, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, it's a great shot. Everybody's agreeing with that. RJ said, I would have had to call it fine art if I manually focused. My eyes are not what they used to be. That's hilarious. Jason said it's a good black and white. RJ said it's a manual. I'm guessing it's a manual focus job with that lens adapted. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Coach G says, the more people I meet, the more I like my dog. That's hilarious. Jason pointed out the same thing. It looks like the camera focused on the nose instead of the eyes, but there's enough depth of field that it's sharp enough. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and the catch light on the eyes, Janice points out, are really good. Noisy Mama, oh my God, dog, so cute, she says. A woof box, yeah. Yeah, this is a really well done shot, Trent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Noisy Mom was asking if there was flash, but you said it was all
Oh,
natural light, correct?
the detail here doesn't say anything about flash, so I'm oh no, it was all available light. That's what it
Yeah,
says in
yeah,
the shot in the details here. That catch light looks like it could be a flash, but it's available
yeah.
light.
Probably window light.
Yeah, okay, so that one was Mark's, that one was mine, so we're going to skip on by those. Oh, I think it was a lamp, Trent says. Okay.
Yeah.
And now we have this next shot. This one is just looking for the details here. This is called Fade to Black, messing around with the new macro lens. Not sure whose photo this is because of the random username, so please go ahead and claim this. Messing around with the new macro lens. Lots of rainy days here in the Northeast, so decided to fool around with indoor plants. I laid a flash on the table for this shot. I liked how the light from the window silhouetted the background. D80, which is still kicking. This is Janice's. Excellent. And this was shot at ISO 400, 1/20th and f16. Oh, I see you signed it at the end there, Janice. I just didn't get that far.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Mark. This is awesome. I love this shot.
Yeah. Looks like I'm buffering here, so hopefully I don't drop out here. But it's a nice shot. I've actually have a shot that's similar to this that I took quite a few years ago. It's just sort of natural light and it has some nice highlights. But I like the way that the highlights are on the edge of the leaves there in the bottom of the tulip. And again, like it's called fade to black, and how everything kind of goes to black in the background. So it brings your attention into the tulip that's there, and then you still got some of the other tulip leaves or whatever that is in the background that's getting out of focus, but it's still there to kind of keep your attention in there. Kind of helps draw you back into the flowers. So I think it's well executed.
Yeah, it's that underlighting I think works really well. That flash that you put on the table there, I love this take on it. And the play on the theme, the title, fading it into black, the way the light flows from the bottom brighter and fades darker as you move up. So it fades towards that black towards the top. And the way the darker color of the red is richer in a different way versus the brighter greens and yellows that you get at the base of the flower. Janice says she put a paper towel over the flash. Awesome way to diffuse that light. That's beautiful. And then, just like you said, that background fall off, the highlighting of those leaves in the background, the rim lighting that they're catching to give them enough detail and shape to separate them, the fall off with the depth of field is gorgeous. The framing of this is really beautiful. I love the way you cut that flower off and made this very compositionally heavy on the right side, and it's empty on the left, but that negative space is balancing it out, so it works as a really, really beautiful composition. And that headroom that you gave the flower above is like just enough. This is a really intimate and beautiful paint portrait photograph of this flower. It's really fantastic. This is a beautiful photo, Janice. I really love it. Excellent work. RJ says that flower has such interesting shapes and tone in it. I agree. Moses says the layers made by the leaves are very beautiful. Yes, that's part of what I love about this. In the background, particularly, those layers and the way everything flows is really, really beautiful. George says paper towel over the flash. That is Yankee ingenuity if ever I saw it. Absolutely, right? Let's see here. This is a different take than most floral shots, Jason says. I like it. Great fall off. Absolutely. Brenda Snobs. I half read Jason's comment where said noise snobs don't zoom in. I like the noise. I was going to comment on it, but I didn't. But I like the noise in the shot. I think it adds to the atmosphere and the feeling of this photo. But you're right. If a person isn't into the noise, then don't look too closely at this photo.
Yeah.
What I was trying to say is Jason's other or Brenda's comment from previously, which is that she loves this shot. Harley said he loves that negative space on the left as well. Scott likes the photo. Yeah, it's really, really excellent work. Cochise Heart says macro photography is awesome. More photographers should shoot macro. Yeah, I still need to make some macro videos. Those are forthcoming. All right, this is RJ's shots. So before we look at the shot, RJ actually was kind enough to share a behind the scenes look at the photo. So we'll take a quick look at this. You can see the lighting setup, and just looking for the details of this that I'll read off, and then we'll switch to the actual photo. So the settings for this are this was shot with the Canon 5D Mark II using the 85mm lens at f5.6. It was at ISO 160, 1/160th of a second, and f5.6. It's a 3-light setup, as you can see here. You have the 2 strip boxes, left and right, and then a 20-degree grid to open up the side of Connor's head. And the portrait was taken as part of my Make Portraits project. The BTS was on the 35 millimeters. Janice says that's an old camera with a lousy ISO. I dig it, though. I dig it. So, RJ, this is a really, really cool shot. So let's go back to the shot itself. And Mark, I'll let you go ahead and talk about it first.
Okay. Yeah, I'm waiting for it to come onto the screen.
Right,
here, so.
right. To make its way through to you?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there we go. Okay. I like it. This guy just basically in general he has character, and I think the way you lit it with the grids to really narrow it down and just give you some nice direct hard lighting just really adds to it. It just because of his character, it just helps accent his character and just bring it more forward, and it works really well. I like the composition in this and the setup and the lighting and everything. It's definitely a very well executed shot.
Yeah, I love the way the lighting shapes him out. You've got the detail in the hair. You got the enough rim on the back to separate him from that really beautiful dark black background. Enough lights falling on that leg and that shoe, again, to create some separation. He's got a ton of great character. You've got that gridded light on the face to separate that, to highlight it, to bring your attention in there. It's a really nicely set up light, really well done, creative. It looks simple, but it is and it isn't simple as far as the complex.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah, there's a really beautiful complexity to it, and what I love is that you're highlighting the character, right? It's you're making a portrait, and that's really what you've done here with this, RJ, is captured the essence and character of this person by letting them be who they are, and also using your lighting to craft that and illuminate it and light it and highlight it. It's really, really great. I like it. And RJ says,
RJ comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say he just was thanking me for the comment, and he said it had to be black and white, not because black and white is cool. Well, it is, but but because the chair and the seat back is a bright cuffing yellow, so I guess it really stood.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as a black and white, absolutely, that yellow would really, really pop out and break the shot. So I think that was a super smart approach to it. Trent says, nice shot.
It works great as a black and white, anyways. I really like it.
It really does, yeah. RJ says every shoot is a conversation. Thanks, everyone. I agree. It really is. And this is a beautiful, capturing of that conversation. Trent says it's a nice shot. Noisy Mama says, I love that. He showed us the setup. Thank you for that. Cool shot. Rick says this shot is simply brilliant. The pose, the light, the expression. I like when the guy teaching shows something special, something to aspire to. Absolutely. I love says Abe Lincoln, right? There's a bit of Abe in there. I can see that.
Yeah, I can see it for sure.
Yeah, just need a 10-foot tall hat on top of him. All right. Whoops, I hit the wrong button there. Let's move on to the next shot. And this one here is, I believe this is George's photo, if I'm correct. And yep, right here. This is the Old Stone Church. This was shot with the Canon 70-200 millimeter f4 lens at 200 millimeters at ISO 800, f11, and 1/1000th of a second. And George said, I'm on vacation this week and had the opportunity to drive to this church in central Massachusetts and take some damn photos. That is the spirit. That is the spirit.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, this is a really cool shot. You want to go ahead, Mark?
Yeah. I'll start on it. Like Spyros said, it's a really cool shot. A couple of minor things. I wish there was more room on the on the right side where the tower is,
Mm-hmm.
because on the left side you've got a little bit more open space. So I wish it was a little bit more balanced in the middle. But that's just a minor thing because you haven't actually cut anything off, so it's not a big deal. And I'm not sure why, but the water to me seems a little bit too vibrant. So I'm not sure if if the water was actually that color or if the saturation was just kicked up a notch or not. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just a minor thing. But in general, yes, it's a great shot. I love the look of that church. It's definitely a nicely captured moment, and it's straight. It's not leaning.
Right.
uh, yeah, yeah. There's not much to say about it. Just, I kind of wish the flag wasn't on the side because I'd like to see all the stonework there. But
Mm-hmm.
I know Americans in general are proud of their heritage and like to show off the flags and that sort of thing. So I can understand it being there.
America.
America,
Right. I think it's a really cool shot. I'm okay with the gap with the spacing on the left because of the verticality of the tower.
right.
For me, the balance works because you've got the verticality of the tower, and so that line isn't as energetic as the slope of the eave of the roof is on the left. That slope adds some energy and motion off to the left, and so for me, having more of a gap over there works because it gives you room to move in the shot. Whereas on the left, on the right, I'm sorry, I'm more moving up and down with that tower, so that gap feels like enough for me to see what I need to see without needing the additional breathing room. But again, these are always just us sharing our own thoughts on it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I
And
agree. Go
that,
ahead.
that said, looking at it a little bit closer too, I can see why he did leave more room on the left because the one you can't see what I'm pointing at, but the tree that's on the bottom left, he's got the whole tree in there, and if you went
Right.
back, then the tree would have been chopped off. So I'm guessing it was probably done intentionally, just so that all the tree was in the frame.
Yeah, and I think it works. I agree with what you say about the saturation, and Jason also pointed that out. It looks like the saturation work was a little too much, and I think George even said, yeah, there's his comment. He said, George says, I think I overcooked it a little bit. So toning that down a little bit would make it feel a little less boom, as far as some of those colors go. But outside of that, like compositionally, I think it's really great. The cell tower on the left is something that I noticed right away, as well as I think Jason commented on it. Yeah, and that's like a hit with the healing brush tool to clean that up as well. Those are minor things. Overall, I think this is a really well composed shot, a very interesting building. I love the way you spaced everything out. The flag on the building, I actually agree with you, Mark. Obviously, George can't do anything about the flag, right? The flag is
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah,
You take the
exactly.
shot, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
In a perfect world, I agree. I think the flag not being there would let the building's character shine a little bit more in the shot. But that is what it is. I think it's a really well done shot. I like the inclusion of the water too. That adds some breathing room to the shot as well. That I think makes this feel a little bit more open and airy, even though it is a pretty tight composition on the building itself.
yeah.
That and the sky and the way those two, the water and the sky kind of mirror each other, I think helps a lot. So
Hmm.
all in all, George, I think this is a really excellently done shot. I like it quite a bit. George says that flag becomes a wreath in the winter for Christmas. So it seems like they kind of rotate something on the side of the building based upon the season or the theme.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Jason says, I like how all the windows line up. Some great lines in that building. I agree. I think
Yeah,
the architecture here is the building clearly has a lot of really great character, and I really like that.
yeah.
Um,
It's hard to go wrong with old buildings like this. The architecture in them, inside and out, is usually quite stunning, no matter how you look at it.
yeah. So we got a question here and a couple other comments. So I want to touch on those real quick. Um, Rick said, guys, do you think one can get to RJ's level of light construction learning on YouTube, or one has to do the workshops? Um, and I would say, as a person who has done all of my learning um, without really using workshops or whatever, you certainly can. Like, YouTube is obviously helpful because we're here right now. I do what I do on YouTube, and other photographers do what they do on YouTube to share what we've learned. The more important thing, though, is in order to learn and advance to the level that you might be aspiring to, you have to actually do the shooting. That is the real key. The more you shoot and practice and learn, the faster you will grow in your photography.
Yeah,
So,
and even like getting to RJ's level, a workshop would absolutely help. But if you don't have the equipment and the lighting to be able to actually do it, then it's almost like you're getting the basics there. But then if you don't have the equipment and you can't really replicate it or start practicing yourself, then it doesn't take long for that stuff to disappear. But if you have it, it helps you remember it once you do get back into it as well too.
yeah. So let me share something. And I've shared this before, but I think this is really valuable. Because I kid you not, like this is one of the sort of like demarcation points in my photography. A leap forward for me was when I finally decided to really focus on learning lighting. And what I did is I decided that I would take a self portrait of me using my lighting every single day for a year. And to do something different with it every day. It wasn't just walk in, like take a quick snapshot of my face and I was done. The goal was to learn and understand how to use lighting. And because I didn't have readily available people to shoot, I decided to shoot myself. And so to do that every day for a year, I literally transformed my skill in that time period. And you can see the progression if you look at the photos, because I did it every single day. Now, I'm not saying you got to do it every single day, but if you use whatever you have, and it doesn't have to be expensive, right? Like you can get into lighting for cheap, and I'm talking like under $100. You can spend $35 on a flash on Amazon. You can get a light stand for stupidly funny. The light stands actually end up being more expensive than the stupid flash because of all the metal that's in them. But you can get a light stand for somewhere around 20 or 30 bucks or so. You can get a cheap set of triggers for like 12 or 15 bucks on Amazon, and an umbrella for 10 or 20, right? And that's all you need. That's all you need is a kit to get started. One light to start shooting and learning. And then when you feel confident enough, you can get another light and add that in, and now you have two lights to work with. But I did it with one light for a long time, like probably, I don't remember how long, but I did just one light for a long time, and then I added a second light somewhere through that year, and it was transformative because I was shooting all the time, practicing and experimenting all the time. So you can do it. You don't need workshops. Workshops can help, but you don't need them. What you need to do is shoot and practice. Yeah, I was actually going to grab that video, Jason. So I'm going to move on to the next shot and let Mark start talking about that one while I get that video link. So I'll just read the settings on this one, and then I'll go get that link to that video. So I'm trying to find, this is Aristeas. This is a 55 millimeter lens. Must have been pattern metering. This was 1/640th of a second, shot at f5.6. We don't have any ISO info. All right, so I'll go ahead, Mark.
Okay. I can't tell. It's probably the stream coming through because it's fuzzy as anything. So I think that's just the stream.
It's the stream.
It is the stream. Yeah, that's what I figured. My awesome internet, even though I even got it upgraded, but
Right.
yeah. But I think the faster shutter speed works quite well here because if the bird was going to take off or move, you'd catch that. Plus, also the waves and everything, you're kind of capturing them and showing the interesting water feature that's going on behind the bird. I wish the bird wasn't quite as centered in the frame as it is. I think if it had been a little bit more to the left, it might have added a little bit to it just to sort of follow the rule of thirds a little bit. But it's a bird photo. It is what it is. But it's good. It's like I said, a little bit of tweaking with the composition might improve it. But I think the basic settings that you've got there for capturing it work quite well.
Yeah, Scott says this was taken on a ferry, and it's a bird shot, and I like the context of it. What I find most interesting is the bird is perched on this very man-made thing that shows a very stark contrast between the man-made nature of things, the fact that it's a shot on a ferry, which even augments that even more, and then the bird and nature and the water and everything else going on in the background. I like the depth of field in here. That depth of field really helps separate the bird from the background and helps the bird stand out quite a bit. Uh, I think, oh, it's the ramp for the cars that the bird is perched on. So the bird's actually perched on the ferry. Interesting. Okay. And it's a nice detail shot because you've got a lot of nice detail on the bird. It's sharp and it's in focus. I'd maybe like this. I can't decide if I'd like to see this a little bit tighter because in the background, I'm finding that horizon line there, that split in the horizon goes off in two different directions. And those lines to me are pulling a little bit of attention away from the bird. And I'm finding it a little bit distracting. So maybe a little bit tighter, like coming in like this, because then we can really focus on the bird and seeing the bird. And we still have enough context, to see everything else. But this is just me kind of, thinking about it, and I'm not 100% sure yet. I do like that it gives us some background context as well, but I'm finding that a bit too distracting. So I think I'd prefer to crop it a little bit tighter. But otherwise, I think it's a really nicely done shot, Scott, of the bird, and I like the detail that you've captured here, and I like that contrast that you captured as well. Yeah, RJ. What's that?
The bird's the word.
The bird's the word. Yep, the bird. The bird is the word. Divarug says, I think my photo is next. You can skip it since I'm on the phone and don't want to miss it. Okay, we'll skip over that and we'll come back to it. Let me get back to the right place.
Your friend coming over tonight?
No. Well, yeah, no, they're not. I can't exercise this week because I can't get my allergy testing patches wet. So right. I can't get all nasty and sweaty from working out. So, with that being said, this, I believe, is the photo that we need to skip, so we'll come back to that one. And this is Moses' shot right here. So let me get Moses' information. This was shot with the Fuji XE2. Nice camera. 27 millimeter f2.8. And the lens was at f9 and 1/250th of a second at ISO 100. And the grain was added in post. So I'll let you go ahead, Mark. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because we've got a big white border on this so that you can see a little bit more of the detail on the stream. So there we go.
I'm just waiting for it to zoom in. Again, it's coming through all. It's like my stream's only coming through at, what's it coming through at? 240. So it's difficult for me to make out some of the details here. But it's a woman, I'm assuming, on like a sand beach, and that's wet with the reflection. Sorry, but I do like this one. It's I think it works nice as a black and white. It's just because there's so much mood and drama in this photo, and I love the reflection of the person and the sky in the water reflections there. So it's really nice. I really like the drama. I like the way the horizon's on a third. The person's in the middle, but it doesn't bother me because I think it works well just because the person's not in the middle of the frame and stand on the bottom third. So I think it works well like that. I really like this one.
I like it a lot too. I love how open this feels, and that person being in the middle. I think that's a really strong compositional choice because there's so much around them. I don't know if the point of this photo was to try to make the person look and seem very small and not necessarily insignificant, but to emphasize the vastness of the world around us. That's the feeling I get from this. And so them being in the center of this frame with all of this around them is, I think, really, really powerful. Jason or RJ just pointed out that it's a strong shot and it works well in black and white. The sea horizon cutting through the head does bug me a little bit, though, he says. And I can see what you're talking about. That horizon line does kind of go right through the neck there, which is a very small detail. But I didn't notice it until until RJ pointed it out.
I didn't either.
But now I kind of can't unsee it, so it's one of those things. Moses says, I wanted to show the greatness of the ocean and the sky. And you captured that beautifully, Moses. Absolutely
definitely.
beautifully. Yeah, I think the black and white treatment works amazingly. I think the addition of the grain is also very smart here. I love what you did here. I also think it's really, really strong because the person is a silhouette. We don't see any, I mean, it's a black and white, so we wouldn't see color anyway, but as a silhouette, I think that helps emphasize the greatness of the sky, and having this small person in the shot emphasizes that even more. So Moses, I think you nailed this. I really think this is really well done.
A great negative space photo.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Jason's wondering about a comment that I made. Jason commented earlier that the photos that I put up of myself taken that year, he said props to me putting them up because some of them aren't super flattering, and I just said that they are still out there. And some of them aren't. You know, I mean, I was experimenting with a lot of different things and taking the photos, and some of the photos are not great, right? But it was part of my journey in photography, and I'm happy to share that so that other people can learn from it, and also so other people can see that if you want to share that kind of thing, there's no shame in sharing that, right? Like, we're human beings, and nobody's perfect, whether it's in your skill, whether it's in how you look, whether it's your body type, whether it's whatever, all of these different things, right? We're people, we're human beings, and, you know, we are imperfectly beautiful as we are. So there's just some discussion. We're going to detour a little bit here because there's some discussion in the chat going on about these workshops, and I think this is something that's worth talking about a little bit, because Rick was asking about this as we were talking about earlier, and RJ said that workshops can be of value, but do your research before handing over cash and make sure that they will offer value and not just a, hey, look at my slideshow for 4 hours.
Right.
And that's very, very true. And then Rick said he went to a Lindsay Adler workshop for $750, but there was a full house and I was at the back, so all I did was get a few shots of the model after the presentation. And I'm not knocking, you know, Lindsay Adler or anybody else, but what RJ said is absolutely right. And Rick says, you know, he paid $750 and felt cheated, and I would have too, and I agree. I don't think that was right of Lindsay to run a workshop in that way. If you're paying $750, you should really be getting something more than just standing in the back of the room and watching a person do some kind of a presentation, and maybe, you know, getting a few overhead quick shots of whatever's going on in front. Workshops are hard. Because, you know, you're shelling out money to try to learn, and you know, not every person is a good teacher. There are lots of good photographers out there, but not every photographer that is great is also good at teaching and conveying information. And that's not a knock on anybody. That's just the way it is sometimes. Now, I happen to know that Lindsay is a great teacher. But it sounds like the structure of that workshop was not thought out very well, and as such, people like Rick didn't get what they were expecting, and certainly what they paid for. You know, which isn't fair or right. And like, I've wanted to do workshops. And want to do workshops, but the problem I have is, you know, how do I do a workshop when my audience is scattered, you know, all over the world, quite literally, right? But that's where YouTube can come back in, and where you can learn a thing on YouTube and then practice that thing, and then come back to YouTube and learn the next thing and then practice that thing. And there's also, you know, there are courses like the video courses that I sell or other photographers sell that are kind of a bridge between the two. But the thing that I kind of want to just come back to and emphasize is that, you know, the thing that will help you learn the most is to shoot as much as you can. You need, sometimes you need information to advance yourself, and that's where workshops or YouTube or other things come in. But
Yeah.
if you shoot and practice on a regular basis, you will see your work improve. I promise you that. I promise you that.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
practice.
Yep. RJ says a workshop should inform, teach, inspire, and let people try the techniques / shoot. Some workshops will be more theory heavy, of course. This is very, very true. And I've always preferred to try to structure workshops in two ways. Number one, I like to keep my workshops smaller when I run them, like 10 to 12 people max, maybe 15. And as hands-on as possible. You know, like you need a chunk of time of just me conveying information, and then, but even during those chunks of time, I always try to have it be hands-on, and then a chunk of time of actually applying and shooting with that information, and then
Mm-hmm.
you know, another chunk of time coming back and building on that information with new information, shooting some more. Like, to me, that's a good workshop structure, because you're learning, implementing, and then learning more and building on that through the course of the time that you're in a workshop. So,
Yep.
some thoughts on that, and you know, it's a hard thing with picking a workshop, because people are asking you to invest a lot of money, and I get why, you know, people are wary of taking workshops from people, because you just don't know. So yeah, let's go back to the photos here. All right, this one is let me find. I'm not seeing any information on this photo. So if anybody has this photo, we're going to skip by this since we have no information on it. If this is your photo, go ahead and add your information about it in the share room. And we'll move on to the next photo. And let me find the information for this one. Shot this at a local club. Was sort of unprepared, but I am pleased with how it came out. It was shot at f4 and 1/80th of a second at ISO 6400 with flash. They were nice enough and allowed me to stick my remote flash on a wall ornament. And this is Rick's photo right here. All right, excellent. I'll let you go ahead, Mark.
Okay, yeah, I like these kinds of shots where you've got like a small band or playing at a small venue like this, and shooting in places like this can be tricky because usually the lighting is horrendous. But it looks like it worked well for you. The lighting from the ambient and the flash looks to be pretty well blended. It's a little hot at the top there from the one light, but it's probably not much you've been able to do about that anyways. But it looks good. I like the captured moment. You're kind of sitting there and uh, interacting with the audience, and then the saxophone player doing his thing, and of course the drummer back there and the guitar player. But like the main emphasis is obviously her with the saxophone player kind of next, and because the other guys kind of blend a little bit into the background. But it's good. It's a good capture. A few little distracting things, like I said, the hot spot up at the top. You got the exit sign over on the left, but they're there. There's nothing you can really do about stuff like that. You might have been able to jockey your position a little bit, but without being there and knowing the venue, there could have been people there. So maybe you were stuck where you were. I don't know, but overall, for what you were working with, it looks great.
Yeah, Rick, I think this is also I think this is a really well done shot. I agree with Mark. Probably the toughest element is that hot spot of the light that you're getting in the ceiling there, and coming in on a, you know, just lowering that upper, cropping down a little bit on that ceiling just to take out that brightness from that light does a ton to increase the value of this photo, because that hot spot up there just draws so much attention upward that it takes away from what you want us to focus on, which is the people here. So cropping that down, just taking the top and cropping it down is all you got to do. You don't have to crop the entire shot, just come down, and that's going to make it a much stronger. Doing it something like this. The exit sign also, like Mark said, because it's text, it draws attention as well. So I wouldn't crop down on that as well, because then you're getting too close to the sax. Is that saxophone?
Yeah, so,
Saxophonist? The
yeah.
saxophonist's head, but rather, taking a quick hit to that with a healing brush tool or a clone stamp up there would get rid of that, and that's going to like clean up your frame a ton right there, just doing those things.
Mhm.
Now, to the rest of this, I like it. One of the things I like that what you did here is you used the environment, right? You were able to take your flash and stick it in an ornamental light or something over on the side. So you weren't just shooting flash on camera, which you see a lot of in these sort of band type situations, which sometimes is the only option you have. And if that's the only option you have, then, so be it. But you were able to work your environment and create a shot where the flash and the ambient mixed together is very, very well done. And I'm not just being nice. Like Rick said, don't be nice. Now, you guys know we never try to like rip a photo apart, but we want to point out the things that you can improve. I think the lighting that you did here, Rick, is really well done. Like, really well done. I would not have guessed that you had used flash if you just set this picture in front of me and said, take a look at this photo. That's how well done I think your light balancing is here. So yeah, that's really, really well done. Compositionally, I think it's really nice too, because you've got a really good flow here. You have the singer down here in this lower left-hand corner, and then you have the band members framing her in the back. It's a tiny bit unfortunate that the bass or guitar player is sort of coming out of her head, but you get what you get sometimes. And I think it's still okay because there's enough depth to separate them that I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just something that's like, it's like a teeny tiny quibble thing. To me, the biggest problem is just what we talked about at the beginning, that light from the ceiling and that exit sign. And if you come down on those, I think you've nailed it. Honestly, I think you did a really great job with the shot all the way around. That light balance is really well done for a band shot. That's really hard to do, to get a good band shot, and I think you did it really well here.
I agree.
Okay, so Cochise is back, Cochise Hart, and Cochise Hart had the guitar photo. So this is shot at 85 millimeters in f1.2, nice, at ISO 100, and this was another different band performing. And this, I'll start on this one, because this I think is a really cool shot. One, right? The thing that I see right away, Mark, do you see it too? The guitar rack's a little bit crooked.
Oh, yeah.
So I would straighten out that guitar rack. I think that's going to add a lot to the photo. I love Cochise Hart. I love how you framed this. I love how you're using the guitars and the way they separate to frame the guitarist in between the verticals. Like the head of the guitarist is in there where the attention is, and the guitars sort of frame the guitar. Exactly. It's like a frame within a frame. RJ said, like, this is really well done. I love the way you use the depth of field to separate them. And that separation actually helps draw them together, because if you had greater depth of field, in my opinion, it wouldn't work, because everything being in focus would make it all sort of blend and mush together. So that separation works really, really well here. The contrast of the sky against everything else is great, because it creates this silhouette here, which allows you to tell the story you're trying to tell, which is of these guitars and the player playing on the band. It's really, really well done. I love this shot. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, everything you said. The only thing that I might add a comment to is the bottom left corner is the bright red there. Maybe if it was toned down a little bit, because it does kind of every once in a while draw my eye away from what's going on. But other than that, basically everything else you said, I would agree upon.
Yeah, Noisy Mama asked if I'm looking at the vertical bar to be straightened. I'm kind of looking at both the vertical and the horizontal bar. I would have to see how it looked after straightening, though, because it's possible that the straightening of these things could offset the guitars and the guitar player too much. So
That's kind of what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
might work, it might not work.
What I would probably do is rather than rotate the image, I think I would use, in fact, here, let me show you guys this real quick. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is save this, or attempt to save this to my, camera roll. And then I'm going to open this in Lightroom and import it. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Because what I would use to do that is the geometry tool rather than straightening it. So let me grab a photo from the camera roll. Here it is right here. Add one photo. And then let's go to most recent photos. Here it is. Okay, so we go into edit. Now this is in Lightroom CC Classic, Lightroom CC, iPad desktop, whatever. But the geometry tool gives you this guided tool right here that you can see highlighted in blue. And what you do is you run this thing along the lines that you want to be horizontal and vertical. So I'm going to pick these top and bottom lines, and you see what it does there? It twists the frame to straighten it out. And you do the same thing with your vertical. So like I could say here, and then, you know, that line by itself is enough. And I'm just going to put this away, and then you can kind of do like that's before and that's after. And for me, I think it's okay, straightened out.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, I don't know what you guys think. Go ahead.
The guitar player does look like he's leaning a little bit, but that being said, he's a guitar player, and they're always
Right.
kind of
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That's kind of what I was thinking. So that's the tool that I would use to take those lines and clean them up. And because they're cleaned up, I find them way less distracting, and it lets me focus way more on the guitars and the player. I think that works out a lot better. Mm-hmm. So that's how I would approach it. All right, Coach Easthart, thank you so much for sharing this photo. Whoops, closed on me. Let's see. There we go. Nope, back the wrong way. Yeah, that's the one we were looking at. So this next one here is, let me find out whose this is. Just looking for the info on this photo. Catch you later, Harley, by the way. Harley's got to go. Yeah. Oh, this is Shane's. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Shane. All right, Shane, tell us a little bit about your photo. It says, kindness starts with you. Let someone know you care. All right, Mark, I'll let you start on this one.
Okay, this is, I don't know, obviously don't know what the purpose is of it. For me, it doesn't say anything to me, but I think in a case like this, if you knew what it was in relationship to, then it would probably make a big difference. But the photo itself, though, it's good. The focus is on the sign. A little bit more depth of field might have been nice, because you can see the writing on the left hand side is starting to get out of focus. So what did you say the aperture was?
I don't see the details, so I was just waiting for Shane, to pop his information in.
Oh, okay. But I do like the background's all nice and blurred out, and even the colorful bokeh balls there. I actually like that. It just kind of helps tie everything together. Like normally, I would say something like that's a distraction, but in this case, I don't think it is. So apparently, it was shot at 1.4. So
yes.
It might have been better at 2.8. You still would have got a nice blurry background, but you might have got a little bit more depth of field on the little tag there.
Want to quickly shout out and say hello to Bella JB and Fernando and Ricky, who are hanging out in the stream. And I like Shane says, my community is doing the Be Kind thing, and these notes were all over random trees in the park. And I like the shot. Number one, that bokeh is super dope. Like that's a great touch. That depth of field, I think, adds a lot. I'm okay with the letters on the left hand side of the note starting to fall out a little bit, because there's enough there that you can pull them in.
Yeah, and you can definitely still read it.
Yeah, and the lettering itself is strong enough to pull its attention. So this is a situation where the focus of the shot, right? The thing we're supposed to see is the note on the tree. And it's interesting because it's not a thing that we're used to seeing. So this is something that's incongruous. Oh, Maya's got to go to bed. All right, Maya, did you share? Did we get a photo from you, Maya, this week? She's got to go to bed. Good night, though, Maya.
Yeah, night, Maya.
So I like the shot, and I like the fact that we have this sort of story within a story, which is these kindness notes. And what this reminds me of is around town here, we have people who paint up these little rocks. And sometimes it has like a cute little saying on it. Sometimes it's just like a little face or something. Sometimes it's just a colorful thing. And then they go around town. People go around town and they just hide these rocks around for people to find. And this is that same kind of thing. So it is sort of like a social media-ish, or just kind of a positivity campaign. And I like that. And I like this documentation of it because it shows you the context of it. You have the tree, and then you have this note pinned to the tree, and that shallowed up the field really helps bring the attention. And the composition works because you show the tree, but you have this openness on the right that balances it out. And then I like that the note is slanted off, rather than being like on a particular straight line, and you didn't try to straighten anything out or anything like that. It's a nice shot, and I think it works really well, Shane. Bokeh seems to be the in thing, Bella JB says. To a degree it is. Bokeh has always kind of been attractive to us as humans in photos. Like, that's not necessarily a new thing, but then, like, there's this meme, and I'm sure some of you probably saw it, that went around. In fact, I want to see if I can find it because it was hilarious. There was this meme about, here we go. It was on F-Stoppers. The headline, this is a joke. This wasn't a real article. Portrait photographer surprised to discover his lens has apertures other than f1.4. which is a funny poke at sort of, some people overusing bokeh. It's like anything else. All of these things are elements and tools that we have in our photography, and some people like to go overboard on a thing. And I'm not saying that anybody here has. I don't think I've seen anything from any of you guys that feels like overboard or overdone as far as something like that goes. But some people get a little caught up in like, oh my God, shallow depth of field all the time, like, shallow depth of field or die kind of thing, right? and that's just not the case. It's just, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. And Shane says, hey, I just got this lens. I had to shoot at f1.4 at least once. Right. But like we said, like, the bokeh works here, so that's not a bad thing at all.
Agreed.
Oh God, Ricky says the one with 0.95, where the only thing in focus is the eyes. Right, exactly.
Probably only one eye.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we're gonna move on to this next shot here. This is just looking for the information here on this one, and I don't see any information in the chat on this one. So if anybody's going to claim this shot, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, hopefully we hear. I really like this shot.
I do too. It's a really well done shot. I'm not sure who it belongs to. Yeah. Noisy Mama says, I love this chest shot. Okay, well, we're going to move on to the next one. Oh, it's Brian's. Okay, got it. All right, so Brian, do us a favor, Brian, and just share some details on the shot as far as your settings, if you have them handy and whatnot. Mark, I'll let you go ahead on this one.
Yeah, that was, where did it go? There it is. I really like this one. It's just the tones are great. The depth of field is great in this one. I like the background being black, so everything just really stands out. The chess pieces just have so much detail in them, so you just keep looking around and basically you keep looking back and forth at all the different pieces, and it's just always something new to see. There's it's not your typical chess set, so it just gives you more to look at, and even the ones that are out of focus, you're still looking at them too
Mm-hmm.
because it's a unique set. So I like it. It's a really good shot. It's well laid out, well well defined, and it's a very interesting shot.
Yeah, it's a really excellent shot. Brian said this is um, ISO 100 and f9 at 1/160th of a second with a 50 millimeter lens. Flash camera
But
left. It says flask. I'm like, we talking like a flask? Flash at camera left. Yeah. What I love about this shot is the standoff, the tension, the competition of the battle. Yeah, the end game. We're in the end game now, Ricky says, right? All of that is captured beautifully in this image with the white pieces on the one side falling out of focus, but there's enough detail there, like Mark said, that we can see we know what they are. Everything is just like, this is really, really well done. I love the tension that's built up in this shot. One of the things that's augmenting the tension is the slight angle to the edge of the board and the frame in the shot. If you look at the back edge of the board, it's slanting down to the right. That's adding some energy, and because everything's off kilter, it's building that tension because we're feeling that tension that starts with the chess pieces facing off in that end game. No spoilers here, gang. No spoilers. And then we have additional tension because of that. The lighting is absolutely on point. The detail of this is really beautiful. Brian, this is a really well done shot. It's really,
yeah,
really nicely done. I like it a lot. Brian says
yeah,
this is called Across the Battlefield. Choice
good
name.
name.
Very nicely done. All right. This is, you guys, like, I love seeing your photos. Like, this is really, really awesome. So this is Fernando shot, and let me just find this information right here. It's a Juliette Capulet portrait shot for a children's library. And this was taken with an 85 millimeter lens at f7.1, shot with one light, and then used Lightroom and Photoshop to add the floor and the wooden wall in post. Okay.
All those added in post. That's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, that's really well done. That's
Yeah.
very well done. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, no, to me, that's the big thing is the fact that the floor and the wall were at it in post. It's very well blended together. It's I would never be able to do it. That's definitely not at my skill level. Whenever I ever try doing anything like that, it ends up looking like crap. So, but other than that, I like your look. I wish your eyes weren't looking up quite as high as they are, is because you just see so much white in her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's just a minor detail. Like other than that, I really like the shot. It's been well executed, well put together, well lit, well photoshopped, and that's about all I can say about it. It's a splendid photo.
Yeah, Fernando, this is really, really beautifully done. The composite work here is really excellent. Taking and changing out a background like that is really difficult. And one of the things that you did excellently here is your light and shadow work on the elements you changed out, on the background and on the ground itself. That's one of the dead giveaways that you'll find in poor composite work, is not realizing that you have to add lighting and shadow details to those elements in order to bring it all together and ground everything in reality, right? So if you look at the background, there is the lighting caused on the background from the flash, and then the shadowing, that vignette that's being created by the flash. So that's all something that to some degree or another was added in. I'm not sure exactly how you did your post work, so there are different ways to approach this kind of thing, but it's just excellently done. Same with the ground down here. You have her casting her shadow. You have the dress. One of the most important things is this detail right here. The shadows that are added underneath the feet and elements like that, underneath the dress in this little corner right here. All of that kind of stuff is super important to creating a really well done composite, and this is a really great example of that. I think the lighting in this on her is beautiful. I like her pose. I think I agree with you on the eyes, Mark. I think they're just a little bit too far off. We got a lot of white in there. We can see her pupil, but it almost gets lost in the catchlight there. So not necessarily having her look too camera, but just bringing her eyes a little bit more forward, I think would just add a little bit more. That's a tiny criticism, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
this is
That's a bit.
still a beautiful photo. Really excellently done, Fernando. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. It's
Yeah,
excellent work here.
yeah. I think the eyes is basically just being nitpicky because the rest
Right.
of the photo is so well executed.
Yeah, it was taken with a 50% gray backdrop, and it took me about 3 hours to edit, but I love the process. I agree. Like, I've done some composites like that, and it's a ton of work, but it's also a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. The
Yeah,
one that
but
I'm,
feeling when it's all said and done.
yeah, it is a really great feeling. Um, Everybody else loves it too. Really liking the shot. Moses says it's almost a painting. The lighting and colors are perfect. Great post work. Great shot. Hello, Edith, by the way. Edith is joining us now too. So let's move on to the next shot. This is a super cool shot. This here is an image of Corn at night taken on a mobile. So this is just a cell phone shot, but when I say just a cell phone shot, that's not a criticism here. This is Mustafa's photo, and it says my photo shot it at f1.7 and ISO 400 on the phone. So Mark, I'll let you go ahead here.
Yeah, I think it's fairly obvious that there's a lot of blurring done after the fact, but I think the only thing that really gives it away is the post is going right up the middle, because the fact that it's sharp down where the corn is, but then it's blurry up at the top. It's probably just an in-app thing, but if there was any way that you could have kept that post sharp all the way up, it would have been less obvious. But I don't mind the muted colors in this one. I think it works well. The I always like street shots like this in general, so to me that's a win right there, and it just works well. It's a nice shot of a taken at a street market or wherever this is, regardless. But it's the kind of shot I like, and probably I'd probably take a shot similar to this as well myself too, just because it's interesting, and I like this sort of photos.
I like it quite a bit. I agree with your assessment of the blurring. That post definitely gives it away, because if you look at your depth, it becomes incongruous, because the corn in the front of the post obviously is in focus, and then the post itself is in focus towards the bottom, and then some of the corn behind it is in focus, but then as the post moves up, it's coming out of focus. So depending upon the app that you use to edit these things, you may not have this kind of control to be able to take that post and bring it back into focus in the foreground, which I get, right? Sometimes the apps you're using are limited, and that's fine. Working with the tools you have, though, I love this shot. I love the color toning of this shot. The grading work that you did on this, I'm not sure, how you processed it, but I like the color grading work that you did on it. It adds a cinematic feel to it that I like quite a bit. I love the detail that you captured in the corn and the story you're telling with this street shot. I think it's really well composed as well. Often, with shots like this, I would probably go down lower, but I like the angle you chose, because it also lets us see the person working here, popping or cooking or working with the corn, which helps tell the story that you're trying to tell here with this street corn vendor shot. It's a really well done shot. Excuse me. Rick asked if you can adjust your ISO and other shooting settings on mobile phones. Generally you can, but it usually requires an app. So like if you have an iPhone, you usually have to use a different app rather than the stock camera app to change your ISO. Right. On Android phones, it honestly varies from phone to phone depending upon the default camera app that the manufacturer has built for the phone. But if it doesn't allow it, you can get an app on Android phones that will also allow you to change your ISO. You can't change your aperture on most phones because the aperture is typically fixed.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was fixed.
Yeah, to just one aperture. Although Samsung, I think, has recently had some phones that have two aperture options. So then you might be able to change it. And as Mustafa said, you can also shoot RAW on both Android or iPhones. Although, again, on iPhone, it requires a different app rather than the stock camera app in order to access and be able to choose the RAW settings. So yeah,
I think you can draw with the iPhone X, I believe, but I think the older ones you can't, if memory serves me right.
Okay, that may be the case. I have an iPhone 7, and as of right now, I need a different app to select. So maybe on the 10 and the newer ones, in the stock camera app, you can choose RAW.
Yeah, don't quote me on that, though.
Yeah, Shane says, don't say it's just a phone shot. Wait, yeah, and when I say that, I don't mean it to downgrade it at all. Rather just to say, like, it is a phone shot. Phone shots are perfectly valid, and, it's, like Shane said, the skills are really important. And Shane, first of all, you can absolutely, I've seen some of your work, Shane. You've got good work out there. Don't bang yourself down. Can you name some of those apps? Yeah, we can. So one of the apps actually is Lightroom. Hey, Finn's back again. Finn's popping in and out, working on some video stuff. That's awesome. I got you, Shane. Okay, so some of the apps. The first one I'll mention is actually the Lightroom app. For the phone. That's available on both Android and iPhone. And within the Lightroom app, you can switch to capturing in RAW. You can change your ISO, your shutter speed, your white balance, and other settings like that are available to you. However, if you don't use the Lightroom, if you don't pay for the Lightroom subscription, there are some features that are limited. I don't know exactly which ones they are, but I'm pretty sure it's just the synchronization features. So you can still use like all of the camera Lightroom mobile features. The one that I use, I can't think of the name of it, so I got to look on my phone.
Yeah, I've never played around with any of the camera apps myself.
Yeah, what is it?
Like I use my phone to take pictures, but I usually use the stock iPhone.
Yeah, I mean,
camera thing, anyways.
I don't, you know what? I don't even have it on here anymore because mostly what I do is I use the stock app if I'm just grabbing, a quick photo and I don't care about it. Or I use Lightroom if I want to shoot something in RAW and it's a photo with my phone that I care about, so to speak. Good night, RJ. RJ's got to drop out. It's 1:41 a.m.
That's a good reason to drop out.
Yeah. As far as editing goes, okay, George said on the iPhone XS Max, you cannot shoot RAW with the stock camera app, so you still need an alternative app. As far as editing goes, again, I would recommend Lightroom on the mobile for editing, but there's also Snapseed, which is available on iOS or Android. That's by Google. VSCO is a popular app. I'm not sure if that's available on Android, but I know it's available on iPhones. Trying to think of some of the other ones. Not Hipstamatic. That's not the one I'm thinking of. What's the other one called? I was just looking at these in the App Store today, too. So let me just look real quick again, because then I can just rattle off the names real fast. It probably won't show me the apps again.
That'd be too easy.
Yeah, let me just do a quick search for photography, because they'll pop up. Photography.
Good night, Moses.
Good night, Moses. Thank you for joining. No, of course, none of them are coming up now, and I can't think of any of the names. But I tend to stick with Lightroom, honestly, for my edit. Polar is one. Thank you, Ricky. Polar is definitely one of them. But I tend to stick with Lightroom and then go to... This is on my iPad typically, but I'll go to my iPad if I want to do something more intense, and I'll use Affinity Photo. But that's not available on phone. Affinity is only available for iPad. So anyway, if you need more app direction, go ahead and shoot me a message. Maybe we could do a show someday just talking about apps. That might be interesting. All right, let's move on to this next photo here. This is I'm looking for the info here. I'm not. Oh, here we go. This is Kevin's photo, and Kevin shot this at an event. It is a pasture celebration. This was shot with the Pentax K3 with a flashpoint flash set to the camera settings were ISO 1100, f4, and 1/180th of a second. Oh, Pixelmator on iPad is another one Ricky pointed out. Yes, that's another good option. All right, Mark, I'll let you start with this photo here.
This is another one of those candid captures, which is something that I put usually at weddings, and that is what I shoot a lot of. So I can kind of relate to something like this, and I think it's a well captured shot. You got the two gentlemen at the back in the back there. You can see them interacting with each other and talking and what have you, and the focus is bang on. They're like definitely nice and sharp. The guy in the front there, he's a little bit out of focus, but that's because of your depth of field, and nothing can really be done about that, especially shooting something indoors like this where you got the lower light and you're trying to trying to blend the ambient with your flash. So you are pretty somewhat limited in a case like that, and I think the exposure is nicely done. The gentleman in the middle, some of the highlights are a little bit hot, but not that bad. I know when you're working with mixed tones like this, it can be difficult to get the exposure just right the way you need it. It can be definitely be tricky, and like for what you're working with, you did a good job of getting it as close as you could.
Yeah, I like the intimacy of the shot. It's another tight shot, and that brings me into the group with them, which I think is really nice. Kevin did add that this was shot with a 28 to 75 millimeter Tamron lens, and the lighting on this is I think it's nice because it is well lit and it's pretty even across the board. Although, as Mark pointed out, there are some highlights that it would be nice to have those toned down a little bit. Those highlights are mostly coming off the clothes. That's a little bit of a battle because when you're fighting with the dynamic range, where you have these gentlemen here who have obviously darker skin tones, and then they have the bright whites of their clothing, and the way the light's hitting that, you're just fighting that a little bit. Mm-hmm. Bringing that in a little bit, you could approach it one of two ways. And when you're running and gunning, you don't always have this option, right? So this is obviously, best case scenario versus in the moment just getting what you can get at that time. But in the moment, if you could take a moment to adjust that exposure so that you may already have enough detail in there, Kevin, with your raw file to bring those highlights back in on the clothing. But regardless of that, it's I still think the shot is really nice because of the intimacy of the moment that you've captured here. That's what's really strong about it. There is that element that you can see in here, the celebration, the camaraderie between these gentlemen here. You can see the background. There's just enough context to put this in place, mostly that sign in the background. And what works here is that sign is has text on it, and text can pull attention away. We've talked about that tonight. However, that text is falling just enough out of focus that I don't find it really distracting. My attention really is on these gentlemen and their camaraderie together, and I think that is what works well. Yep. What I am wondering, Kevin, is did you fire the flash on axis, so pointing at them, or did you fire the flash at the ceiling? My guess is that you fired it at the ceiling and you're bouncing, but I'm guessing on that. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just because the specular highlights look to be sort of on the top of their heads. So
exactly. Yeah, that
good indicator.
And the way it's falling on the shoulders and the collars. Yep, the flash is bounced, which makes perfect sense. And I think that was the right choice. So Shane said, I'll say it, black people are harder to shoot because we're all different shades of the same color. It can confuse the camera. And he said Shane adds, it's hard to adjust for one color without murdering the others. I mean, it's true. And one of the unfortunate things about the way cameras work is that the way cameras meter is for that 18% gray. If you watched my videos on metering modes, you know this. What the camera does is it takes all the colors and mixes them up. It takes all the brightness tones and mixes them up, and then tries to make that soup 50% gray, which is also 18% gray. The difference is 50% gray is 50% bright to dark. 18% gray is the reflectance value. But both of those are based on human skin tones, Caucasian human skin tones, which is not not diverse, obviously. And that makes it more difficult to shoot people who have skin tones that are not Caucasian, right? So you have to adjust your exposure for that, and sometimes you're fighting the dynamic range of your shot because of that. And it's unfortunate that it is that way. It would be nice if our cameras understood that and these things were programmed in, and maybe you could punch that in. But that's also part of where we can take control of our cameras and try to work with that. And Kevin, to bring this all back around, Kevin, I think you did a very good job here of balancing that as best as you could in the situation. Because again, when you're in that moment and you have to capture the shot you're trying to capture, you do the best that you can at the speed that you can. And I think you did, because what is important here is that they are exposed well. Their skin tones are exposed well. You can see them and the detail in their faces and the emotion that is being captured, and that's the important part of it.
Yeah, but what I tend to do when I'm shooting an event like this, where it's in one room where the lighting doesn't change, is I shoot in manual and I set my flash to manual, so therefore basically no matter where I am in the room, the exposure doesn't change, and so once I get it set to where I want it, then I don't have to worry about the camera trying to guess what I want. It's basically what it is what it is, and it's just locked in there.
Right. And Shane says, your words are way better than mine. I see the guy on the right as red boned, while the middle guy is a bit darker, but not much. And I definitely see that too. He's a little bit closer to the camera, and so he caught a little bit more of the light from the flash that was falling forward. Even though the light was bounced, some of that light is falling forward, and that's why you kind of see it more on the broad side of his face that's facing the camera, and the broad side of his nose, and that's lifting him in the exposure compared to the other two. And Kevin said exactly that. They didn't give much time always in motion, which is to be expected. So under those circumstances, Kevin, I think you did a really nice job, and I like what you captured here, because what you were trying to capture was that celebration in that moment, and I think you nailed that there. Really well done.
Agreed.
All righty. The last shot, well, we have one more photo in here, but I think this is also Mustafa's, and we do ask that you just share one photo. So we're going to skip that one, and I want to actually go back, because there's the one photo that we skipped. The person had to step out, and I'm not sure if they're back, but I still want to take a moment to look at this photo from Gretchen, or of Gretchen rather. Just looking for the details in here real quick. Yeah, Shane says you see the fellowship, and that's what's important. Excellent. Okay, this is Devil. I don't even know how to say that. Devil RG. Deval RG. Sorry. Okay, this was shot with the Sony A7 III at ISO 50 with the 35mm lens, 1/8000th of a second in f1.4, and then a Godox Deval. Okay, thank you, Deval. Thank you, Deval. Deval. The Godox 8600 and a Glow Easy Lock 25-inch beauty dish. I like this shot. This is really nicely done. I'll let you go, Mark.
Yeah, I agree. I like the fact that it's backlit, so therefore it just gives a nice highlight all around her and in her hair. And then, like you said, you've used the flash to help light her, so everything is so nicely balanced lighting wise. And I also love the reflection as well too. Reflections can sometimes be tricky getting them to work well, but it works extremely well in this case. I like the editing. It looks like you've intentionally toned down the colors a little bit, and I think it worked quite well in this shot. And Yeah, overall, it's a great shot. I really like it. I don't really have anything negative to say about this one.
I love the lighting on this shot, Duvall. I think it's really well done. The tonality of the image also works really well. I think that's excellently done. It's very warm, and I like that warmth. I like that warmth a lot.
Hmm.
You've got the sky is like a tiny bit hot compared to the rest of it, so that does pull me up there. That gets back to dynamic range again. You could have maybe brought that down a little bit, or like you could cropping that would be hard because then you lose some of that openness that I think you were going for. So that's a small thing. One of the other things that's catching me a little bit is that the whole shot. Now she's vertical, but the rest of the shot feels like it's laying off to the left because of the way the ground looks and the way the lines are receding into the background. It feels like it's leaning off that way. It's That's a little bit distracting to me. If I put my hand over that and I just focus my attention on her, like it's so well done. The other thing that's pulling away is those lines are so strong into the background, and so they pull my eye past her into that background. And it might have worked better if she was actually further back in this shot so that the lines lead to her rather than her being more towards the front and then the lines going past her into the back. So that's me looking at sort of the entirety of the composition and seeing myself being pulled into that background. Like I say, when I kind of put my hand over it so that it's just the lines of the building and not the walkway and everything else, then I don't find those lines quite as distracting. It makes it a more intimate shot. It's way more tighter, probably a little too tight on her, to crop it that way. But that's just kind of how I'm seeing the composition. Now, backing up again, I love that lighting, like I said. I think her pose is really nice. I like that you've got just enough catch light and the whites of her eyes there to give us that detail. And I think your use of the reflection is really, really excellent here as well. So overall, this is a really, really excellent shot. I know I kind of honed on that background a bit, but when I look at this shot, my first impression and my last impression is still that it's really a beautiful shot. And she's really strong in this, strong enough that the background almost doesn't matter. Ricky says, I'm actually pulled more to the reflection of her face. Strong look at every angle. I agree. And that's really strong, too. That's part of what helps offset that kind of off-kilter feeling that I'm getting in that background. Brenda says, so interesting, the shadow line leads my eye away. Yeah. That one on the ground there, that's a really strong line right there. And then Ricky says, I do feel like the flash is slightly cooler than the sun. It might be a hair, but I think it works pretty well. Duvall says, I have similar shots with the 135 that has more compression but not as much background. That might work a little bit better, Duvall. I'd certainly be curious to see one of those and compare it to this one right here. Still a very strong photo. Still a very, very strong photo, and I really, really like it quite a bit.
Yep.
All right. So on that note, I think we're going to wrap this bad boy up. I want to thank all of you for sharing your photos with us and remind you that next week's theme is long exposure. Now, what we want you to do is have shot that photo that you're going to be sharing within the last 2 weeks. 3 weeks? 2 weeks, because did we skip a week? Did we skip a week for something? No, I did it by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, within the last 2 weeks. So sometime between April 15th and, April 22nd and May 6th, we would like you to have shot your long exposure photo to be shared for next week. I'm really excited to see your photos of long exposure. I'm really excited to take my photo. This has been a long show tonight, but I love the photos.
Yeah, I didn't know what the theme was till tonight, so I have a week to figure out what I'm going to do.
All right. Brenda's been practicing. That's excellent. Mark, do you have anything you want to add before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the show and sharing your photos with us. We will see you next week
Yep.
with long exposure. I'll be back on Friday for the next live stream. That'll be the regular edit hangout. I pretend to edit, but don't actually edit. Live stream. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Have a wonderful night. Make sure you get out there and take some damn photos. Bye.
Yep. Night, everybody.